In my previous video, I felled some dead spruce trees that had started to become dangerous. A few of them had already snapped and fallen down in the winds, so they needed to come down to avoid any accidents. Once the sapwood had rotted, the bark became loose and peeled off easily. But inside of that, the rest of the trunk on this one seemed pretty healthy. Couldn't see any signs of rot, so I thought I'd try and hew it. Before scribing and notching the log for hewing, I cut away some of the rotten sapwood, just to check the quality of the log and see if it was worth the effort. Since the log seemed okay, I decided to scribe it and try and make some lumber out of it. Dead dry wood is harder to cut than green wood, so notching the log was harder work than usual. I also should have brought a larger axe with a longer handle, so I didn't have to bend my back so much. The fibers at the bottom of a log are always a bit gnarly and stringy, so it's always more work hewing in that end. And when the log is dry like this one, that means a little bit extra work as well. When hewing a large log like this, suddenly the broadaxe doesn't seem that big at all. The proportions are totally different to what I'm used to. Time to take a little rest. I've never taken on such a big log. I thought it might be an interesting experiment, although it's a dead spruce killed by pine borers. The sapwood is well and truly rotted, but inside of that the lumber is pretty solid, so I think I can use it. I cut the mark at 3 meters, like 10 feet up, see if I can make a beam of that. I'm actually gonna try and split it into 2 beams, but I'm starting with hewing the sides flat to have some sort of reference surfaces and also lose some excess weight before I buck it and move it, because I can't split it when it's connected to the top. Need to sever it for that. Pretty hard work, and maybe I don't have all the tools I need either. I should have a longer handle on my axe when I do the notches standing up on top of the log. But I'll give it a go and see how it works. If this turns out alright, it will be the start of the constructions down here. This is a much bigger area than up at my working camp where I am building my timber frame fireplace. This big clearing here will be another type of camp, recreational camp, to invite guests to and have big fires, barbecues and parties hopefully, and some sort of nice playground for Samson and his friends when he grows up. Anyway, I think I started from the wrong end. I think it's easier to hew from the top and down, so I did 3 sections here now, but I had to go a little bit backwards, so I'm gonna go up to the 10-foot mark and cut notches there and start hewing from there and down. I think that will be easier. And before you know it, I'll have a beam or 2. Notching the log is a pretty labor-intensive part of the process, especially if you do it like this, standing on top of the log, working with an axe that's too short. When this is done, cutting off the wood in between the notches is usually pretty smooth sailing. One of the first things I notice is that hewing a large log like this requires several passes. At least the way I'm hewing. Because now that I'm down to 1/3 of the log diameter, then I start to hit my fingers on the next piece that comes after. So I can't go all the way down, I have to continue to the next one. Hew off the same amount of wood here. Stop before I start hitting the next piece with my fingers, and then I take that one off. Then I can go up to the first one and take off a little bit more. So that's an interesting revelation for me, since I'm new to this sort of dimension of logs. Most of the small logs I've been hewing up to now have been about, I don't know, 9 or 10 inches perhaps. So this is something totally different. I'm doing 3 pieces at a time, I think that's convenient. Then I don't have to run up and down the log too much. I think I deserve a coffee break now. Compared to the small logs I've been hewing before, this looks pretty majestic. Something that preferably should be done with larger axes, I guess, with longer handles. Well, working with the Gränsfors broad axe, walking along the log, is quite alright. But I guess it would be convenient to use a heavier hewing axe with a longer handle, walking along on top of the log. mostly known from Japanese hewing, I guess. But I don't have any axes like that. It was more convenient up there than down here because the log sits a lot lower here. I have to bend my back more. There is a little step here from where I did the first 3 bits from the bottom up to when I switched to going from the top down. So I'm not totally on the line here, but then again it doesn't really matter at this stage. I'm doing it pretty roughly since I'm gonna split it, and when that's done I'm gonna hew it to a more perfect or perfectish dimension. I'm not really going for super perfect out here anyway, since it's a little bit of a playground here, and it's a little bit of me learning as I go as well. I want it to be fun, and the more I do it the better I will get, of course. I've seen that on the smaller logs I've been hewing. The speed and accuracy has increased doing those, so I guess if I did more big timbers it would be the same with that. I'm pretty sure these dimensions require you to develop your patience a whole lot more than when you hew smaller logs. It takes more time. The bigger things get, the more time they take to work with and complete. That's just part of it. Perhaps it's more important getting into a sort of a meditative zone when you do this, and not trying to rush through it. I've had a little bit of a go with what can happen when you try to rush through things. And I cut my left shin with this very axe, actually, that I use and love, even though it bit me. But I don't want to have any similar accidents again, because I am in a hurry. And working with big logs, I notice right away that I use a lot more force to cut off more wood, because the dimensions sort of allows you to do that, at least for the rough hewing. And if you miss, then cutting a lot harder than you usually do, you can of course inflict a whole lot more damage to yourself if you glance and hit your legs. Anyway, I like it, it's fun, it's educational. Hopefully what comes out of it will also be useful. I think the rot is 1 or 2 inches down from the sapwood and in, so inside of it the trunk feels good. I think it's going to be totally usable lumber. This is a pleasant surprise, because I haven't had that experience with other dead spruce I've felled before. It's nice to find that in one of the big ones, so I can make something really substantial, although I have to cut away quite a lot of rot. Alright, time for the next side. This time I don't have to cut away any rotten sapwood before I start. I already know the lumber inside of the trunk is good. So I'm scribing it for notching straight away. I just need to remove some big branches before I start. If I'm ever gonna hew a large log like this again, I'm bringing my felling axe for the notching. That one has a 32-inch handle instead of 26 like the boy's axe I'm using here. And it has a head weight of 3.3 pounds instead of 2.6 as this one. That would make a difference. I've talked about switching the grip from right to left for tree felling when you move from one side of the tree to the other. The same thing goes for hewing. Now that I stand on the other side of the log than before, I grip the broadaxe the other way around.
I try to cut the branches out when I'm notching the log, but there was a little bit left here. The more of them you get out, the easier it is to do the juggling. Juggling is this process, I mentioned it before in other videos, where you cut off the pieces in between the notches. The actual hewing comes later when you make a smooth surface. Well, the whole process is generally referred to as hewing, but what actually is the hewing, that's the smooth cutting. So technically, I haven't done any hewing on this log yet. I've done notching and juggling. This is what you get when you're working with spruce. A whole lot of branches. They're always oriented in a circle around the trunk. So I have 3 here that I can see from this side. There's probably one more underneath here. So you can plan the notching out pretty good from where they are situated, but if they are big, like in this case, it's hard to get them all out in the bottom of the notch. Almost an inch wide here inside of the trunk. I can't make a notch that's an inch wide in the bottom easily. Anyway, you always end in a point. That's just something you have to cope with. I think this is a German technique. Must say it's not uncomfortable at all. And pretty safe as well, because you're chopping downwards, and with a longer handle you are far away from where the axe goes if it glances. Working heavily with the broad axe as I did just before, there is a definite danger that you glance and hit your leg. I had a few glances that was uncomfortable there actually, but because of how I angle the broad axe's head and how I stand with my legs, I didn't cut myself. But this method feels a lot less risky, I must say. And you get to sit down on the job. That's always nice. See, I can glance as much as I want over here. I will never hit myself. Worst thing that will happen is that I hit the ground and have to resharpen the axe, but that's no problem compared to cutting yourself in the shin or the foot. Sometimes helps with some extra scoring cuts if it's hard for some reason. For this job, the boy's axe is the perfect axe, I think. The length and the head weight is just what you want here. 26 inches, 2.6 pounds. Perfect.
Coming back down to the bottom of the log, those stringy wood fibers are making work a little bit harder once again.
There's a whole lot of good cooking wood here now. Since the spruce was dry and dead already, this is perfect using on a fire right away. So it's pretty good keeping the notches like 1 foot apart, so you get usable lengths of firewood. Especially if you're working out in the woods and have a camp, then you always need firewood for coffee and food. That's the traditional way of using the leftovers. Then it's not waste, then it's fuel, it's a resource. That's a nice one. It's getting harder and harder the further down to the root I come. Because of the bend of the tree, I have to cut off quite a lot on this side. It was much less on the other side. Now there's almost no room to stand. Well, this is the last bit. Soon I'm done with this part of the job, at least. It's a totally different experience than hewing small lumber, I have to say. Very rewarding, and also a real decent workout. I've come into the habit of doing this kind of work on Sundays. Good thing I'm not a church going man. Wouldn't have time for it. When would I have time to hew my lumber? Between parenthood and work. Sometime in the future this YouTube channel might be work, and I don't have to work as much on Sundays. I'm nowhere near that right now. I still have to go and work for money come the Monday. I don't like breaking this much with the axe. But the bent fibers here where the root comes, then it sort of forced me to. I think I'll call it a day here, celebrating with my last sip of coffee. For me, it's a little bit of an achievement, way above the sizes of logs I've been hewing before. And I think it's a good way to stop, having done the rough hewing or the juggling on both sides of the log. I'm saving the smooth cutting. Well, actually I'm saving that till after I split this, severed it from the top and split it. So that will be for the next video when I continue with this project. Might be some other videos in between, like the timber frame fireplace at my survival camp or work camp. That's pretty close to this location actually. I also have a new tool to unbox and try out, so that's also a video that's coming up. So there are multiple reasons to subscribe and come back for my next video. Really hope you want to do that if you're not already a subscriber. Tell me if you enjoyed this video and if you have done something similar, what sort of conclusions you have drawn from that, what type of knowledge you can convey to me that I'm missing out on. And I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, take care.